Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of Lansing. I'm Reverend Sharon Ketchum here with you for an inspirational message for this week, Compassionate Listening, as part of a series we're doing on 64 days of communication. And the exciting thing, if you're watching this Sunday morning, is we are at the end of the first day of spring, started on Saturday, ends on Sunday. So boy, doesn't that feel good? Spring is in the air. So I thought in celebration of spring, I'd share a song with you, Daniel Naiman, called Planting Seeds. Because boy, when I think of spring, I just can't wait to start planting, start working with my stuff. I hope you'll enjoy this.
I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing
It's like your whole life you've been training for this moment, and when the time comes you just disown it, meaning you just surrender, don't control it, not interested in the clay pots and mold it, or sitting next to the path trying to unfold it, or waiting for the fruits to fall down toward you. Let it go and now you're flowing, feeling quite gorgeous, so you take steps away instead of towards it. What a rush, feeling freedom with nothing to hold. We've been taught that what you touch will always turn to gold, and now we're learning when we let it go it overflows, with no credit to take cause no credit is home. A higher power working deeper where the seeds are sowed, and when the seeds are true then they're seeds of gold. But the real gold is joy when life starts to flow, and when it does you just smile cause now you know. I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow,
when it grows it grows,
whatever dies will
and when it dies it dies. Come on,
works will
if it works it works.
Whatever flies will
let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
When it fails it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will soar.
When it soars it soars.
I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will
Let it grow, let it
whatever
grow.
dies will
If it
die.
dies it dies.
Whatever works will
When it works it works.
whatever flies
Yeah,
will
let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
Fails it
What's
fails.
meant to soar will soar.
Let it
I
soar.
am
I'm
planting
planting seeds and nothing more.
Whatever grows will grow. Whatever dies will
If it dies it dies.
works will
When it works it works.
flies
Yeah, let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
Fails it fails.
To soar will soar.
Come on, let it
I
soar.
am
I'm
planting
planting seeds and nothing more.
Oh, I have goosebumps over that.
When you smile,
Oh, springtime, and we are planting seeds. Of course, in Unity, we know We're always planting seeds of thought. Every word we speak, every thought we think puts an energy into our universe. So we are now towards the tail end of 64 days of nonviolence. We're also getting near the tail end, the last 2 weeks of Lent, our journey to Easter. And over the past few weeks, we talked about honoring ourselves, honoring others, honoring nature. We all share this planet together. Expressing gratitude, practicing forgiveness, demonstrating compassion one to another, starting with ourselves so we can be compassionate for others. And last week I started on compassionate communication. We're going to carry a little bit more on that. We're going to talk about compassionate listening today, because that's the other side of communicating, right? Speaking and listening. So I'm just going to stop the share. There we go. I guess, we'll just make you big here. There we go. Remember the old comedian Henny Youngman? He said, anyone who thinks talk is cheap has never talked to a traffic cop. There is a cost to our words. Maybe we're not talking to a traffic cop, but we do put those vibrations out into our universe, out into our vision. It fills our imagination with a vibration that goes into that motion of co-creating our reality in the way that we live life. And to practice compassionate communication isn't something that you say like you save your Sunday best for church. Remember those days? Compassionate communication becomes a way of living, a way of thinking, a way of speaking, and a way of relating always to ourselves, to others, to God, to spirit. So just as a little review of last week, compassionate communication, there was kind of 4 steps to become aware of. And right now it may feel kind of cumbersome as you're going through this, but the first to observe the communication. And in observing, it's without evaluating. You don't say, oh, this is awkward, this is hard, this is fun. You just observe what is going on in this interchange. And then as you're observing, observe yourself. See what feelings are going on. Is there something being triggered for you? Powerful, unpowerful, uncomfortable, whatever that might be. And once you identify your feelings, then you think about what need is behind those feelings. All of us have these needs to be loved, these needs to be accepted, these needs to be heard. And very seldom do we really connect with what it is that we need. And once we can identify with it, then we can make a very simple request of the other person, stating our needs in a manner that's not being attacking or defensive. Just trying to figure out what it is that would enrich our life in this interchange of communication. So, in fact, the request part is kind of the tricky part of compassionate communication, because it's not about a demand. I need you to do this. It's not about a don't do that anymore. It drives me crazy. And to be clear about what it is, some simple thing that somebody could do to help you feel your needs being fulfilled. Well, Jesus was, in many ways, a practicing compassionate communicator. And as I read through some of the stories in the Bible, I do have some favorite stories about him when he was actually kind of communicating as a jackal. Now, I will say this, that all the stories of Jesus, he wrote none of them down. These are all from observers. So sometimes people can hear things with a jackal ear. But something happened. I think Jesus had a temper that sometimes he just pushed over that compassionate part of him. He had a heart that was so wide and so loving, but there were times that it bumped up against his needs and his prayers for this world in which we live. So some of the jackal sayings that are attributed to him, when he called people a brood of vipers, this is not compassionate. This is kind of attacking, right? Kind of judgmental. How about, who are my mother and my brothers? Who are they? Because there was a little family thing going on that he saw a much bigger family, and he was kind of on the outs with his mom and his brothers at that time. And then, as we go up to Easter week, when he goes into the temple and sees everything going on, he goes, you've made this place, this temple, a den of thieves. And then he overturned the tables. This was not one of his more stellar, compassionate moments. I love these because they do express the humanness. And there are times that I say things I wish I hadn't said, because the emotion gets so caught up in what it is that I I want to co-create in the world, that some things come out of my mouth that are not gentle and are not compassionate. But more than that, there were teachings that he left behind that really followed these rules of compassionate communication. One of my favorite gospels isn't in the Bible. It's the Gospel of Thomas. It was the Forbidden Bible. The reason I like it so much is that it just recorded Jesus's sayings. It didn't put them in a story. So people that recorded these things down put them into a story, which kind of gives a little bit of shift to the things that were said. So the first step in compassionate communication is observe. Jesus said, be a passerby. In other words, don't get involved in it. Be that detached observer. Really see what's going on. And he said, a servant can't serve two masters, and a slave cannot serve two masters. Otherwise, that slave will honor the one and offend the other. In the same way it is with us, when we get caught up, we're no longer the passerby, we get caught up in what is happening. We have a tendency to take sides. And as soon as we take sides, we have dualism, them and us, right and wrong, good or bad. We all of a sudden start separating our world into two, not just two parts, but two opposing parts that do not meld with each other. And that's what we observe, and then we check our feelings. And in the Gospel of Thomas, it's recorded Jesus saying, those who know all but are lacking in themselves are utterly lacking. Those who know all but are lacking in themselves are utterly lacking. So unless we know ourselves, unless we can identify our feelings, own our feelings, we are in deep, deep poverty of self when we try to communicate. So after we observe, excuse me, and we identify our feelings, then we go a little deeper and identify our needs. And in this, Jesus wrote, when you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourself, then you live in poverty. You are the poverty. When we cannot identify our needs, we're always going to be lacking. We are the poverty, unless we can know ourselves and identify those needs. And then finally, so we observe, we feel, we connect to that need within us, and we make that clean, simple request. Jesus said, ask and it will be given. Ask and it will be given. How simple is that? So there's the teachings again of this compassionate communication in a very beautiful form, little different way of looking at it. So today I want to talk a little bit more about compassionate communication. Ralph Waldo Emerson was the one who said, you are speaking, who you are is speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Who you are is speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. How you're showing up is so loud, I can't get by that. But as I think about that saying, I'd ask each of us to consider who we are and who we think we are. Sometimes these don't match, right? Who we think we are and who we really are, how we are showing up. So I would kind of paraphrase Emerson and say, who I am is listening so loudly that I can't hear what you're saying. Who I am is listening so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. That whatever is going on within me, I am not observing dispassionately. I am adding intention. I am adding weight. I am putting all this extra meaning, creating this story about the words that are coming out of your mouth. Now, how successful do you think any of us are when we do that, when we add on to that? Carl Rogers said, I have been listened to, and when I have been heard, I am able to re-perceive the world in a new way and go on. When I've been listened to and when I feel I've been heard, I'm able to reconceive my world and go on in a new way. That's true for all of us because that need is met of being heard. There's an old Jewish proverb that says God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth to kind of help us decide how much listening we're supposed to do and how much speaking. Learning to listen more than we speak. It can be quite a challenge because we have a lot of things to say. There's a lot going on. Jesus told us to judge with right judgment, to make that discernment about what is being said. And very often we make value judgments that the choice we would make for ourselves, what the other person is doing may not be what our choice would be, right? And then we start going into moral judgments that whatever these people are doing or whatever they're saying don't support our moral judgments. And that is ethics is a whole array of variance. Each one of us has things that are utterly important to us and other things that don't matter so much. But when we try to impose them, what another is saying, all of a sudden our ears shut down or our voices start coloring whatever it is that we're hearing. And when we hear that message to be negative, what do? We could blame the other person and blame ourselves. Oh, you're right, this is awful, and we were a part of that. Or how about blame others and take credit for ourselves? Oh, what they're doing is awful, but I didn't do that. I'm the good person here. But we talk about the Christ within. We talk about our oneness at unity. And in truth, if we remember our oneness, instead of blaming and crediting or blaming and blaming, we learn, we feel into sensing our feelings and our needs so that we can sense another person's feelings and needs or another group's feelings or needs. And when we can do that, when we get to that authentic glimpse of oneness, instead of having the others, the either or, we start getting a oneness that has many different varieties. And just like this bouquet of flowers are all flowers, but they don't look alike. Everyone is different colors, different shapes, different aromas. Communication is ultimately so important in our spiritual journey because the conversations we have with ourselves go to co-create that essence of ourselves, because ultimately those conversations with ourselves evolve into a conversation with God. And we may say, may try to negate the negative things we say, but our subconscious doesn't hear words like should, could have to, or no, or that didn't happen. It just hears the clean thought without those kind of negative adjectives. Our mind is very interesting how we forget those knots when we have our thoughts. So learning in our prayer time, learning in our thinking time, learning in our thinking speaking time to really watch those words we say, to couch them in a different way because we have a different intention coming from our heart. When we observe, what we want to observe is to see the truth beyond the appearance. If you see somebody who's hurt, you don't want to see them as a wounded person as much as trying to train our thought to see their wholeness, to see that their body, even right now, is healing. Every cell has been geared. There's that divine mind, that divine intelligence in every cell and organ that is working to heal them, to mend that bone, to bring them back into that full state of physical wholeness. We want to behold them with the eyes of the divine, the eyes of the essence of who they are. And who they are is part of each of us. And then to have that feeling of oneness, that feeling of connectedness with the other. Not to sympathize, to make them, oh, you poor thing, but to just feel that this too is our experience, to observe, not to own. It's their experience to own, ours to observe and to be with them in that place. And our need is not to credit, not to blame, but simply to recognize the Christ within the other person, that person with whom we are communicating. But beyond these 4 steps, whether it be prayer time, whether it be a conversation with another person, whether it be the conversation we're having in our own head, there is actually a 5th step in compassionate communication, and that is compassionate listening. How do we be more compassionate? And not only in our speaking, but in what it is that we hear. So a goal that we might take on this week is to listen carefully to one another, especially those that disagree with us, and to consider others' feelings and rather on insisting on having our own way. Wow, that would be a big commitment for this week, to listen carefully to one another, especially those who disagree with us. And sometimes it's so much easier to listen to those that agree with us. And to consider their feelings instead of insisting on having our own way. What is it that they're feeling? What are their needs? How can we meet halfway across that field? So our spiritual practice for this week, I'm just going to bring up the screen. There we go. Okay. Today, I turn my complaints into requests. Turn my complaints into requests. Think about that one. Instead of making a complaint, make it a request of the other person, because they have choice too. And listen for the request of others that may be disguised as complaints. Wow. So today I turn my complaints into requests, but at the same time, I commit to listen to the request of others that may be disguised as complaints. Wow. That one just so moves me, those requests that are disguised as complaints. Because when we hear a complaint, very often there's that tendency to fix it or to negate it, as opposed to just listen and be with it and observe. And if we could see what was behind what we're interpreting as a complaint, what a difference it could make as our world. So as we go forth this week, we are going to observe to understand, because we are compassionate listeners. We are going to listen non-judgmentally. We're not going to allow whatever is being said to trigger those unhealed things within us. This is just detached observation so that we can listen without this dialogue starting in our head, proving that we're right or the other person is wrong, whatever that might be. And then we're going to listen even deeper. We're going to listen behind the words so that we can connect to the underlying emotions. Wow. Because I know every time I've been in an argument, it's never about what I think it is. It's never about the argument that I think I'm having at the time. It's about this need that is so sensitive in me. I don't risk sharing that need clearly with another person so that we can come into a more compassionate state of communication. So if we could listen behind the words of others, connect to that underlying emotion, all of a sudden we are connecting at a level, at a prayerful level, at a co-creative level, a level that co-creates more peace and more love in our world. And then finally, to be authentic with our empathy, to be real. Sometimes it will make us cry. Sometimes it might make us laugh. Sometimes it may make us hurt, have the pain for the other person, but to be with them in their space with a compassionate listening ear, a compassionate embracing heart, and compassionate words that come from the very best of us. So it's going to be a fun work as we turn our complaints into requests and listen for the request of others that may be disguised as complaints. I want to take a moment to thank you for supporting this work at Unity Spiritual Center of Lansing. Some of you donate online, some send us checks. We appreciate any channels that they come in with. And it's been so great to have the support through the pandemic. Just a reminder, our conference choice this quarter is the Firecracker Foundation down here in Holt that work with youth that are recovering from abuse, and just really good heart-opening work that they do. So it's been great to send them checks this quarter. And now I'd like to invite you to celebrate your prosperity. Think of the many gifts you've been given. The very fact that you got up and took a breath this morning. The very fact that you have eyes to see, ears to hear, hands to touch. That unexpected phone call. That unexpected gift that may have showed up. That pleasant song you heard on the radio that just lifted your spirits at just the right time. Let us take all those gifts that we have received as we bless them together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I praise, give thanks, and am glad, so very glad. This is Unity on Demand, and you can watch us one segment after another, binge watching it's called, or you can watch us as each segment fits into your schedule. And if you're watching us on Sunday, join us for a live Zoom fellowship time. Because it is the first day of spring, and because there's a lot to remember with compassionate communication, I'm going to give you one more tip. There's one way you can always communicate compassionately. It's the simplest thing in the world. Just smile. Lisa Hastings recommended this song and it made me smile. So I thought I'd see you. I see you smiling and you look absolutely beautiful. Hope you'll join me for a meditation.